So everyone, welcome to Kailul Kol Shira in partnership with Breslov.org. And today, Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to have a beautiful shir. I'd like to talk a little bit about the fact that yesterday, Asar B'Tevis was Reb Nossan. It was his yard site. And his Reb Nossan's name was Reb Nossan ben Naftali Hertz. And he was one of the most remarkable talmidim, one of the most remarkable followers of pretty much any Hasidic leader since the time of the Baal Shem HaKadosh. Here you took a man, right, that was a true genius, a true Talmid Chacham. He knew Kol HaTorah Kulei. It's unquestionable. There's no question about that. And he was always in his life searching for the truth. He wanted to know that he wanted the truth. And what the most important thing to Reb Nossan was always to remember the next world and never to get carried away with things of this world. And unfortunately, we see today too many people get carried away with things of this world, and they lose track of what the main point is, to remember the next world and why we're in this world, to prepare for the next world, right? We studied this based on the teachings of the Chafetz Chaim, right? The Chafetz Chaim would always, that famous story with the Chafetz Chaim, where there was a very wealthy person that came to visit the Chafetz Chaim one time. And this very wealthy person was taken back by the fact that he walked into the home of the Chafetz Chaim, and he saw that he had everything was very meager. The Chafetz Chaim was not living a life of luxury. He didn't have. He was living in a one-room apartment. Whatever he had there, and the fella asked him, like, where are all your things? So the Chafetz Chaim answered him, where are all your things? He asked the rich man, where are all your things? Oh, well, my things are back over there. I'm traveling now, so I don't have a lot of things with me. So the Chafetz Chaim answered him back, I'm also traveling now. I'm traveling through this world to get to the next world. So I'm not going to worry about what I have over here. I'm worried about gaining more mitzvahs, more masim tovim, more closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Yidden, and that's what I'm working on. And that's the message. And that's what Reb Nossan found. Reb Nossan found that he found it in his Rebbe, Rabbi Nachman. And Rabbi Nachman said that if not for my student, Reb Nossan, no one would ever know me in the world, and how true that was. But Reb Nossan really devoted his life, and he went through a lot of torment throughout his life to bring the message out of the Rebbe so we can have the teachings today. Now, one of the teachings that's fascinating for Reb Nossan is this idea. Yaakov Avinu, he lived a very full life, right? He started out, and he was living in the house with Rivka and Yitzchak Avinu. Wow, what a beautiful place, right? And he started out. When Rivka Imenu said to him, go take those brachas from your brother, right? And he went to do that, and then he went. And then he had to leave, and he went to Haran, right? And the whole story, going to Haran and living there for the 20 some year, whatever it was, working for Lavan, amassing whatever wealth he amassed over there, and of course having the Shiftei Ka. And Yaakov Avinu then in Parshas Vayeshev, he tried to sit down and he tried to relax, and then he said, we know that Kafetz. All of the Regesh Shel Yosef, the whole problem with Yosef at Tzaddik started over there, right? and then Yosef Atzadik was missing for 22 years, and now Yaakov Avinu, last week's parsha, he finally makes his way down. He finally makes his way down to Mitzrayim to see Yosef Atzadik, and he goes and he finally meets Yosef Atzadik, and we learned last week the phenomenal teaching that he was saying. Yaakov Avinu was saying Kriya Shema. Remember, Rabbi Yaakov, you asked that question. Remember, where did we know that from? If you look at the Rashi, Chazal say that it's irrefutable that's what Yaakov Avinu was doing, and Yosef, the Tzara says, was crying on Yaakov's shoulder. And we learned that saying Kriya Shema with the tears is the greatest way to prevent the person from immoral thoughts, illicit thoughts, and so on. If the person has that, should say the Kriya Shema and always say it with the tears. Now, Yaakov Avinu is now settled. He settled in Goshen, right? He went to live in Goshen, right? And then in Mitzrayim. While he was there, while Yaakov Avinu was in Goshen, the Torah says that he had the best years of his life. The best years of his life were when he was living in Goshen. Now, we can maybe understand it on a basic level that finally now he has all of his children and he has all of his grandchildren in one place, right? Now, the brothers were all reunited. Yosef was back, right? Binyamin was there. All the 12 tribes, the 12 Shvatim were there. He had his grandchildren, Ephraim and Menashe, right? He had, everyone was there. So it's easy to understand, but why really Yaakov Avinu, of all times of his life, when he's living now in Mitzrayim, he's living in that place, the place of tumah, the place of impurity. Why would he be so comfortable there more so than anywhere else? Rav Nossan explains something so wonderful. Mom is something so wonderful. Yaakov Avinu understood. He understood that there's going to be times of trouble that we're going to go through, Klal Yisrael is going to go through. But he also understood a very important thing. So long as we're all together, and so long as we're always working with each other, to be mechazik one another, to do goodness for one another, that is the key to our success. That is the key to our success, to get past the gullus, So the fact that Yaakov Avinu was now living in Mitzrayim, and he was living amongst the Ervas Haaretz and all of those problems, but he was with everybody together, and that was so important to Yaakov Avinu. That was so important to Yaakov Avinu because he was close with his entire family, and that's exactly what he wanted. He wanted to be close with his mishpacha. He loved his mishpacha. He wanted to be, but the most important thing was to teach the lesson for going forward. Now we know that when Yaakov Avinu wasn't doing well, right? They felt that he was gonna pass on. So they went to tell Yosef, and Yosef went to bring him his two sons, right? Right? Who was two sons? Ephraim and Menashe, right? So you know what Yaakov Avinu did? He took the hands and he switched them, right? He switched them, and he said, "Who are these boys? Who are they?" Why? Because he saw in the future that Yeravam ben Nevat. Does everyone know who Yeravam Nevat was? He was just in the daf, right? Yeravam ben Nevat was a very, very wicked person. He was one of the kings, and he was the one that put guards along the roads throughout Eretz Yisrael so Jews could not be oile regel. Yaakov Avinu Yaakov Avinu saw that this is going to come from these boys. And he said, who are they? Who are they? What did Yosef say? These are the boys that Hashem gave to me. Hashem gave me these boys. And even though they may have the problems going forward, but there's going to be a lot of good also. And that's the famous Torah that we learned about, the Torah Reish Pei Beis, right? Where we always have to find the Nekuda Tova. We have to always find goodness in everybody. Find the goodness, and that's what's the most important thing. Finding the good things in Yidden, and that's what we always have to strive for. So look at this beautiful lesson that we see here now. Yaakov Avinu lived his best years of his life when he was in Goshen. Why? Not because he loved being in Goshen, but he understood that Klal Yisrael is going to be in Golus, and he understood that so well. Why? Because he wanted to reveal, right? The Torah says he wanted to reveal what's going to be in Achvas Hayomim, right? And then what happened? He lost his Ruach HaKodesh. It went away from him. And then Yaakov Avinu was thinking, what? What happened here? Why did I lose my Ruach HaKodesh? Could be there's a problem with one of the boys, with one of the Shvatim. So what happened at that time? All together, all the Shvatim said in unison, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. They all said Shema at one time. And the same way you believe in one God, Tati, that's what we believe. We all believe in the same thing. Then Yaakov Avinu was able to give them the brachas. Yaakov Avinu was able to go and give them their brachas. And Yaakov Avinu gave the bracha, and Yaakov Avinu gave a little rebuke also. He gave rebuke to Reuven, to Shimon and Levi. He gave rebuke. Remember, what was the rebuke that he gave to Reuven? Because Reuven, Reb Nossan writes this, it's fascinating. Reuven, what he wanted to do was, he wanted to bring up the honor of his mother. What happened? When Rachel Imenu passed away, right? When Rachel Imenu passed away, so what did Yaakov Avinu do? He took his bed, and where did he put his bed? He put his bed in the tent of Bilhah, into Bilhah, because Bilhah was the maidservant of Rachel Imenu. Came along Reuven, and what did Reuven do? He took Yaakov Avinu's bed out of Bilhah's tent, and where did he put it? He put it in the tent of Leah Imenu. Leah. So one would think he did something so good. He did something so good. He did, but he was being doichik etzashah. He was trying to bring things closer, faster, before the time that it was supposed to be. He brought things closer before the time was due. And that was the problem. Came with Reuven, came with Shimon and Levi. Shimon and Levi were the ones that decided that they were going to sell. But what happened with them also? They also saw from Yosef's going to come that guy Yerovam ben Nevat is going to come from Yosef. So why do we need him for? If we get rid of him, but it's not upon us. That was the thing. They were trying to be doichik esashah, to bring things faster, closer. That's what Yaakov Avinu recognized. He understood that when he was trying to be Megala the Kates, when he was trying to reveal the end of time, at that time when he was trying to reveal it, and he lost the Shechina left him, he understood that you can't be doichik esashah. Things will take the time that they're going to take. Things have to run their course. You can't bring things faster. Everything has to run its course, and Yaakov Avinu learned that. And that was a very, very, very important thing that Yaakov Avinu learned. So I want to tell you like this also, and Reb Nossan brings over there also the idea of the Heichal Tamurais. And what were the Heichal Tamurais? That's the chambers of where things get changed. Things get changed in the Heichel Temuros. We learned that in the first book of Likutei, Halachos, when we were learning it in Birchas HaShachar. Reb Nossan brings the idea of this idea of the Heichel Temuros. So I want to tell you a beautiful, beautiful story. And this is an amazing, amazing story to understand. And I think you guys are going to really, really like this story. So let's try, okay? We're talking about a young family that lived in America, and they were like those, the three, like a 3-day Jew or something, very modern, very, very modern. And they didn't really know too much. And the story goes like this: that they had a son. His name was Greg. And when it came to Hanukkah, so what they did was they would have a Hanukkah menorah in the house, but outside they would put a Christmas tree. Oh, Hashem Yerushalayim, right? And then when it came to Pesach, they would have matzah. They would make a seder, but they would have rolls and everything else. Oh, very. Now, Greg was getting a little older. He graduated now high school, and they needed to find a college for him. So the college that they found in their area was actually a Christian college, but it was a good school. So they wanted to have a good education for their son. So they took their son Greg down to this college. I'm telling you, this is amazing. Listen to this, guys, okay? You got to hold on to the story, okay? They took him down to the college, and they met with Father Joe. Father Joe in the college, right? He's the dean. He's the dean of the college, and they have to meet with him. So Greg sits down with him, and he's explaining to Greg, that they have a 2 hours a day. They have a class in Catholicism, and it's mandatory that every student takes those classes amongst the other classes that they have. And he sees Greg is sitting there, and Greg is a little bit, he doesn't feel too comfortable. So he asks Greg, "What's the matter?" So Greg says, "No, it's okay. No worry. He asks Greg, "Why? Are you by any chance Jewish?" So Greg says, "Yes, I am Jewish." So the Father Joe says to him, "But I understand that, but if you come to the school, you have to partake in the classes of Catholicism. But I know that that's going to be uncomfortable for you. So what I could do is I can give you an exemption, and you could take on and do Jewish studies for those same 2 hours." So Greg says, "Okay, fine. Okay, where will I get Jewish studies?" "I will teach you Jewish studies." Father Joe says, "I will teach you your Jewish studies." He says, "Okay, fine." So he says, "Look, you're accepted in the college. At 10 o'clock in the morning, when they have their the classes in Catholicism, you come to my office and I will study with you Judaism." Okay. So he accepts it, and he goes he starts the first day, and he knocks on the door for Father Joe, and Father Joe sits him down in his office, and Father Joe takes out an olive bina, the book with the olive base. And he sits down and he says to Greg, "Okay, this is an olive, and this is a base, and this is a gimel, and dalet." He's good. Goes over the whole olive base with him. Greg's a smart guy. Greg picks it up. He's teaching him the vowels, right? And he's learning how the vowels and the patach and the kametz and the tzerei and the tzegel. Wow, it's going gewaldig. He's learning. And Father Joe is teaching him now. he takes out a siddur and he shows him in the siddur how you daven. You start in the morning off with Moda'ani, and then you say the Reishis Chachma, you have to wash your hands. He explains him how he has to wash his hands in the morning. You take the cup and you wash 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Wow! Greg is doing very, very well. He's very, very smart. He's picking it up. Father Joe starts to learn with him now Chumash. He teaches him, he starts learning Bereshis. He starts learning with him Rashi. Amazing. Truly, truly fascinating. So listen to what happens now. About 8 months into the school year, Greg's parents decide one Friday night that they want to go out to the steakhouse. They want to go for the steakhouse. They'll have their Shabbos meal, however their Shabbos meal was. Usually they would light the candles and they would have kiddush and serve pork chops. You understand, in a normal Shabbos in their house. But now they're going to go to the steakhouse. So they ask Greg, would you like to come to the steak? Greg says, no. I stopped eating meat. I don't really eat meat. So I'd rather just stay here. You enjoy the steakhouse. Go and enjoy the steakhouse. So Greg is in the house. And Greg lights 2 Shabbos candles. And Greg has his salad. And he has a little a Zemiris book that he learned about in the songs, and he's trying to sing the songs. And meanwhile, his parents are at the restaurant, and his parents are thinking to themselves, "It's very strange. Our son is doing strange things. I think he's becoming a little religious, because before he eats something, I notice he mumbles some words, and then I noticed that now he doesn't want to eat our meat." And he didn't want to come out with us on Friday night. So let's go home and see what's going on. They come home, and they see that he had candles lit over there. And they're thinking to themselves, what the heck is going on? Where did he learn all of this? What is this? He's becoming religious from what? So they call up Father Joe. And they say, Father Joe, there's a problem here. We sent our kid to the Catholic school, and now he's becoming a religious Jew in your Catholic school? Like, what is going on? So Father Joe says to him, you know what? Come back. Come to me. Come to my home now. So they get in the car. It's Friday night. They get in the car. They ride over to Father Joe. Father Joe invites them in, the parents. And Father Joe says, look, I want to tell you something. He says, and I have to tell you a very personal story, he says. He says, when I was a very young boy, and I finished school, high school, my parents sent me on a trip to the Holy Land. And he said what happened was he was standing at the Wailing Wall, he said, and he was thinking that he really would like to learn something about Judaism. Father Joe, he really wanted to learn. He was a young boy then, but he would like to understand a little bit of what is Judaism. The next thing you know, someone taps him on the shoulder, and it's a guy from Esha Torah. And the guy says to him, would you like to learn a little bit about Judaism? Yeah, sure, I'd love to learn about Judaism. So they said, come with me. They come to here. He takes him into Esha Torah. I don't know if you have ever been there. Okay, you've heard of it. Everyone heard of it, right? Right. So they're teaching him, and he learns how to read, and he learns how. He's also a very smart guy, Joe. He's picking everything up. He learns how to daven. He learns how to do the Chumash and Rashi. He learns Mishnayos. He's learning Gemara. He learns halacha. Amazing. The guy's great. 4 months into his trip, his parents told him that he has to come home, and he has to go to school now to become a priest. So what did he do? He went into the office of the rabbi. And who was the rabbi? Rabbi Noach Weinberg. Olav Shalom. Zeichet Tzadik Kodesh L'Bracha. Right? And he went to speak to the rabbi, and he said to the rabbi, I have to leave the school now. So the rabbi said to him, for what? He says, well, I have to become a priest. So the rabbi said, what do you mean you have to become a priest? He said, well, I'm not Jewish. You're not Jewish? And you stayed in this school all this time, and we devoted so much resources on you, and you're not even Jewish? I'm so upset at you, the rabbi said to him. He said to him, Rabbi, please don't be upset at me. No, I'll never forgive you, he says. Wow. Father Joe is going crazy. He doesn't understand what to do. He doesn't understand? Well, why won't the rabbi forgive him? The rabbi said to him like this. I'll tell you what. Go ahead and go and do what you have to do. But promise me one thing. If you ever meet a Jewish person in your circles, teach him what I taught you. So Father Joe said to the parents, all the years, I never met a Jewish kid that came through the doors of the college. Never. Your son was the first guy that came in. And I remember that Rabbi Weimer, he told me that I have to teach a Jewish. So your son was the perfect guy. So everything I learned in that school, I taught your son. I'm not Jewish myself. Look at the way Hashem runs the world, guys. Look at the way Hashem runs the world. Anyway, Greg wound up going to Eretz Yisrael. Greg wound up going to Esha Torah. Greg wound up becoming a Gevaldig Erlich Yid. He lives in Eretz Yisrael. He's a psychologist in Eretz Yisrael. He has a beautiful family in Eretz Yisrael. Wonderful. Look at the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs things. We would have looked at this situation, right? And we would have said, oh, this is terrible. He's sending him to a Catholic school. Oh, yeah, how terrible that is. And it is terrible. It is terrible. The same way like we're learning over here with Yaakov Avinu. That Yaakov Avinu, that Reuven is moving the bed here, is doing this. They're deciding to sell you, they want to kill Yosef Atzadi because of Yerav. Do we understand any of these things? We don't understand anything that goes on in the world. We wish we could understand, but we don't understand. It's all Me'ez Hashem, and that's why we can never be Doichik Es Hashem. We can never, because there's that Heichel Temuras, where things get exchanged. But look at this exchange that happened over here. They sent their child to a Catholic school, and he became a Frum Yid from going to a Catholic school. Is that not the most wild story? It's amazing, an amazing, amazing idea. Because we know that any time we daven for a child, whenever we're davening for a child, whenever we're davening for someone else's children, whatever we're davening for, we know that no tefillah gets unturned. The tzaddikim all teach us that all the tefillahs are always heard by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we never know. We never know if we put a tefillah in for somebody, who it's going to help and when it's going to help. Obviously, there was a family member from this Greg's family, who knows when, that was davening for the well-being and the neshama of this person. And look what happened. Look how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always being mezaveg zevugim. He's making these matches. Who would have ever imagined that this guy Joe is going to go to Eretz Yisrael? He's going to stand by the Kaisel Maravi. He's going to get to meet and have the idea in his head that he wants to learn about Yiddishkeit. And the Esha Torah guy takes him in. He stays there for 4 months. The rabbi tells him, I'm never going to forgive you unless you teach a Jewish child. Look at the ways of Hashem. Look how wonderful the ways of Hashem. And Yaakov Avinu understood that. Yaakov Avinu understood. That's why he lived his best years when he was living in Goshen, in Mitzrayim, in Erev HaOretz. But he was together with his mishpacha. He was together with everybody. And Yaakov Avinu understood that's the way, that's the success that we can have in the Gullus. That's the only success we can if we always stay together. Does anyone want to have any questions or any comments on this so far? Please.
It's a beautiful story.
Okay, and Reb Yaakov, do you want to say something? Shimon?
How long ago did this happen?
This story must have happened about I would say about probably about 20 some odd years ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah. It's an amazing
story. He's still
Yeah, yeah. This guy Greg lives in Eretz Yisrael, lives in Yerushalayim. Is that amazing? I mean,
it's amazing.
Amazing how we know that the Gemara says the Darkei Hashem Nistarim, right? The ways of Hashem are very, very hidden, very, very, very in a way that we can never understand. But and how do you see it better than a story like this?